We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Nick Barris along with Michele Johnson. She's with Tennessee Justice Center. We're talking this morning about the Supreme Court decision, Affordable Care Act, what it means for Tennessee, where we go. How is your health insurance? What is your situation with all of this? If you want to join in the conversation, I know it's a complex topic. Jeez, you know, and as you say, here's the trick. I mean, some people are going to say, all right, Michele, you talk about making sure you know what the facts are. There's so much misinformation out there. Who do you believe? You're a very credible person, and but some people are going to say, well, the Tennessee Justice Center has a point of view. How do we know you're credible? I mean, just wondering how you answer that when there are critics, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, basically, the coalition of people who've come out in support of this, it's every chamber of commerce in the state. It's the Hospital Association for the state, every hospital that's not a part of the Hospital Association.
Okay.
It's Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, every insurer, major insurer in the state, the entire healthcare industry, the entire business community, the entire religious community.
Okay, great. And so outside of the politics, and it's the lawmakers that maybe, who else is against it?
The Tea Party.
Okay, but that's political. That's a political party. But are there any organizations? You were talking about doctors' organizations.
Doctors are for it. Hospitals are for it. Business communities for it. So there isn't really an organization that's against it, other than this political group that is basically against. That is against the president and against kind of health care for all, I guess. The Beacon Center, AFP, Americans for Prosperity, those are both kind of arms of the Tea Party. Okay. And as I said, like, Tea Party voters and Tea Party legislators have come out and said we're for this. So it's those two tiny groups of people that are pushing an agenda as opposed to solving problems. But I've never ever worked on an issue where so many people in power are all on the same page. You know, every editorial board of every newspaper in the state.
How can that not be brought to bear on the lawmakers? I mean, because apparently it's still enough of a fear that they can't vote for this without worrying they're going to get defeated back home against a challenger who calls them sympathizers with the president because he's toxic in this state. And I mean, how come with all these other organizations, can't they bring pressure to bear?
I would hope so. I mean, I would hope in America that we can solve problems still, that we, as the president said, I know Washington's a mess, but gosh, does it have to be a mess in Nashville too? I mean, can't we solve problems still? I mean, that's the hope, I guess. So you don't have to believe me, but it's a Republican governor, it's the Tennessee Business Roundtable, every chamber of commerce in the state. Rarely are we all in lockstep on an issue, but we are on this one.
Did you say to me during one of the breaks that adding to the layer of possible barriers here is that some of the lawmakers now are frustrated with the same-sex marriage ruling, and this could somehow have a bearing on health care?
Right, that was the report last week. Is the reason why they'll never consider insure Tennessee is because the same-sex marriage decision makes them even more distrustful of the federal government. So the federal government is trying to give us $1.7 billion of our money. That's Tennesseans' taxes are sitting up there waiting, and we are saying, no, we don't want our money back. Let that go to California or let it go to New York. Let them spend our money instead of our citizens. As I'm talking all day, every day to people who are going without, who are in pain, and who are just anxious about going without basic care. Chemotherapy, insulin. It's not right. We can do better by our state.
But some of them now just are upset about the Supreme Court decision.
And that's their excuse. One more reason why we're not going to do it. One more excuse.
Have people died in the past year, 2 years, that could have had health coverage that would have helped sustain their life?
Absolutely, positively. We're going around to get videos and stories of people who are in the gap, and so as we call folks who have said they'd share their story, we have been met with, they've already gone. They've already gone.
And again, the definition of the individual, if you would, that is in this gap is someone who is, how do they fall financially?
Well, it's basically someone who makes no money all the way up to $11,000 a year. So if you make no money, there's this sense that you must qualify for TennCare. But the fact is, only people who qualify for TennCare are children, mothers, pregnant women, mothers or fathers of young children, pregnant women, people with severe disabilities. So if you have cancer, if you have cancer and you have a child that turns 19, you lose, even if you make $6,000 a year, you lose coverage. That's the other thing, is many people who get horrible illnesses like cancer or ALS, they may be very middle class, but they lose their job, and when they lose their job, then their income goes way down, and so they lose their health coverage. And in our state, different from Arkansas or Kentucky. In our state, you lose your job the very time the safety net needs to catch you. You go without basic care that you need, whether you have cancer, you have ALS, you have MS.
So these people too, when they lose their job, they're going to a doctor or they're getting their chemotherapy if they have cancer. They were, and then all of a sudden they lose it, and that's it. You can't pay for it anymore, so the chemotherapy stops.
Right, and sometimes extraordinary doctors try to do this or that, but the fact is, it's not enough. Charity care and the people who testified for this, many of whom were in faith-based clinics who spent their whole life taking care of folks, and they say, it's not enough. You can't deny $1.7 billion will enable us to do our job better.
No, there's no way. I get tired of people saying, well, let some of these charitable organizations fill in the gap. I mean, they're wonderful, but that's asking too much of them, is it not?
Absolutely.
Especially when you're talking 1.7 billion with the B dollars. There's no way that charitable groups are going to come anywhere close to filling in that gap. So then what happens is these people then come off that chemotherapy. I'm just trying to hit it down to the very basics, where when you think about the scenario, you say, gosh, how can you not have empathy for these people? They're off that, and then their cancer grows.
And they die. And so, Kathy Hill was a nurse who was head of a faith-based clinic up in Troy, Tennessee. She testified before the legislature. She says, I'm a Republican, been a Republican my whole life, but I see patients all day, every day at a primary care clinic. And one woman who stands out, she made all the barbecue in this town, Troy, Tennessee. And she came to me, and I knew she had pancreatic cancer, but I couldn't diagnose her. She needed to see a specialist, but she couldn't afford to see a specialist because she didn't have health insurance. So it just got worse and worse.
Pancreatic cancer, but then that's just...
Finally, she got a diagnosis, and it was too late. And she said, so she came in and she said, can I just come and see you so that I can be with you through this journey? And she said, it's wrong. Like, we can do better. It's not about politics. It's about real people.
All right. So again, then, you've been on probably 3 or 4 times over the past 2 years, okay? And we always think, and you've had these little moments where there have been victories here or there, and we think, and you've been able to sign up more people. But I'm just wondering, as our viewers watch now, wondering, will more people become? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think that the key is making sure that people do what they need to do to understand it, and then help their neighbors understand it. And we have resources on our website. We have a really great resource on our Facebook page, constantly giving people tools they need to educate their neighbor. So tnjustice.org, Insure Tennessee, go there, and it's everybody's business, whether our state basically is a laughingstock, or whether we can join other states and care more about our citizens.
But there are other states like Tennessee, though, right now that still haven't opted in, right?
There are other states, but most other states are looking at almost every other state. There's 30 of who've said yes, we'll take the money, and then D.C. as well. The other 20, almost all of them are looking at plans right now. So it's a huge amount of money. There are very few states that can turn away that amount of money.
That's what I was going to say. They just don't have that kind of money. We certainly don't have that kind of money to fill in the blank on that. So the other states looking at it, especially now. So what'll be interesting is after this decision came down, maybe they were all waiting for that to see if other states start falling into line and accepting it. But I don't know that that'll put any different pressure on Tennessee. Well,
the pressure is that these hospitals, like, there's only so long you can have this uncompensated care growing and growing. The Affordable Care Act, the hospital said, we're supporting the Affordable Care Act because it covers everybody, and we can lower uncompensated care. It doesn't make sense to have all these bills that are unpaid because people don't have health coverage. So they gave money back to the federal government to cover everybody. Then the Supreme Court comes along and they say, oh wait, you don't have to cover everybody. The governor decides whether you cover everybody. And so it's kind of a bait and switch for the hospitals. They've given back all this money, but still they have this huge number of people who aren't covered. And in rural communities, it's a pretty significant percentage of people who aren't covered.
Yeah, and as you said too, again, the hospitals in the rural communities, already some of them have shut down.
That's true.
We've done a couple of stories on those. So then you have these poor people that are out there that maybe, one, aren't getting the coverage anyway, but even if they are and they need to seek help, the hospitals aren't there anymore. So you're in the middle of nowhere, and you have to drive to Nashville or Knoxville to get to a hospital.
And some people won't survive. Even privately insured people won't survive that drive, depending on if it's a heart attack or a stroke or a serious car accident.
Yeah, to get to, I mean, there may be little clinics or something, but for the major things like what you just described, you have to go to a main primary care hospital for that, right?
Right.
And so are there going to be any more challenges for this at the Supreme Court? Any other cases pending that will have any bearing on this?
Nothing big. I mean, there's lots of cases, but I think this basically is the end of.
Can states pass constitutional amendments within the state to place limits? I'm just wondering. I know that's a very hard thing to do. I mean, there are some people still, some lawmakers in this state at the federal level that are still looking to defund Obamacare.
Right, absolutely. They've tried to repeal it a million times, and that's it's all fine. I mean, I guess who knows? Who knows what ways they will, how they will work to attack the Affordable Care Act? It would be great if they could spend that energy looking at what their constituents need, because the folks who call us reflect the political makeup of our state. Most of the people who call us and who need health coverage because of urgent health need are Republican. And once there's legislators hear from them, it seems like they would start to focus on their needs. That's what I would think.
And when they call in, do they understand? You're right. Most of them would be Republican. Most people living in the state are Republicans. So when they call in, do they make the connect? I know you don't personally probably take some of those calls. Maybe you do. But when they realize, do they ever ask why this is the situation and why this is happening? And then when you try to explain it to them, do they realize, okay, wait, I voted for these folks and they're denying me my health coverage?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering what the reaction is, or what do they think of that?
Right. Why?
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody, no matter what party you're in, we send people to lead us as as problem solvers, and not to play silly political games. We don't have time for silly political games, because we're trying to live our life, and we're trying to take care of our kids, and we're trying to have a little bit of savings. And so it makes everybody furious when they hear all the silly games that are going on in Nashville, because really, I mean, we deserve better.
All right, we'll take a break on that note. Back with our final segment right after this. Stay with us.